I'm going to get started. I just wanted to welcome you all this evening. I'm Patricia Tomlinson. I'm curator at the Appleton Museum of Art in Ocala, Florida. And I want to thank you for joining us for the Artist's Outlook. This is a series, incidentally. Some of you who may be new this evening, this is an ongoing series. Traditionally, we do it the third Thursday of the month. Sometimes holidays get in the way of that, but usually it's the third Thursday of the month, and we will be going through December. So we have more coming up as well. So if you like this evening, please feel free to join us for subsequent. And I wanted to introduce our wonderful guests this evening. We have Matthew Bennett and Aneesha Rhodes. Matthew is the artist that painted our absolutely gorgeous primary color, for those of you who are familiar with that painting. And Anisha is his friend and was the model and is the muse for the beautiful Wonder Woman. So I want to welcome you both. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia.
You're welcome. Anisha, would you like to go ahead and just maybe say a little bit about yourself for those who may not know you?
Sure. My name is Tanisha Rhodes. I am the model and muse for Primary Color. I also do some other modeling on the side. And as of now, my job title is a day trader.
Wonderful. Thank you. Matthew, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Matthew Bennett. Grew up in Baltimore. I've been an artist since an early age. My wife was in the Navy for 20 years, and we traveled all over the world. And now I'm here in Jacksonville again, doing art and living my life.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I think one of the most interesting things, and I know a decent amount of the backstory, but I think one of the most interesting things about the painting is also your collaboration and your friendship. And of course, your friendship started prior to the painting. I'm going to let whichever one of you would like to talk about that. Tell us, please, how this kind of came to fruition, how this evolved.
I like to say it started when I moved to Florida, and Matt and I worked together at Trader Joe's, and we were two people who were instantly drawn to each other. Like it was almost like walked up to each other and was like, "Do you want to be my friend?" Or like, "I already feel like you're my friend." And from there, we got to know each other mostly at work. But it was probably the very hard conversations that two people who couldn't be more polar opposite had to try to understand each other that led to this painting.
Marvelous.
Yes.
Matthew, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. By the way, I love your earrings. And yeah, so same thing, like I don't actually remember how Anisha and I became friends, because it just kind of happened. It wasn't, like weirdly, like most people have like, mutual interests and that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I mean, it was just like we met and we already knew each other. So that was the easy part. And then not the hard part, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Anisha and I were able to be candid with each other in a way that I'm not able to be with a lot of people. And we started talking about hard things, and some of it came out from, I think, just comments that I had heard you make, Anisha, that surprised me about your experience, and then I just started asking you about it. And I think that experience came from you said you came to Florida, but you came from Connecticut. So basically, I know you lived down in the South before, but you've been north of Mason. No, that's right, because your mom lives in.
Yep.
You never did. All right. So you come from north of the Mason-Dixon line, and now here you are in the South, and you felt like things were different. And I asked you why, and you told me, along with a lot of other things. I learned a lot from you, and yeah, I mean, and it wasn't, when we talk about this, I think we tend to talk about it in terms of like, oh yeah, we had these great conversations. I mean, they weren't always easy conversations.
Sometimes I would ask him to stop and he wouldn't.
Yeah. So I still have never apologized to you appropriately for that, but
All good. We wouldn't have this without that. So.
Yeah. But yeah, and you know, in the other way too. And it wasn't that I didn't want to hear things. It was just that, you know, I mean, there were some things that your experience was so far outside of mine that it wasn't that I didn't believe you. I just didn't have the conceptual ability to be able to put myself into your shoes until we had a longer conversation about it.
It wasn't your reality, even though it was my constant reality.
Exactly. So yeah, and that's where this all started and why we ended up doing this together.
Sorry, one of the things I wanted to ask, and actually has been asked of me, why Wonder Woman and not like Catwoman or whatever?
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I already like had done a little cosplay. Like I had an ex-boyfriend who like was a I don't even know what to call them, but he was big into comic books, and so I'd gone to Comic Cons and stuff like that. So like I'd shown Matt like a couple pictures, and I think we might have been having a conversation. It was post the 2016 election, and I think we were having a conversation about how I felt being a Black woman in America. And I was like, it's like having to walk outside your house every day and having to fight crime or battle the day. And then you get to go home and you can be yourself. But the moment you walk out your door until you get home, there's an armor, there's a readiness that you have to have for whatever may come your way. And I think we were just talking and he was just like, you want to pose as Wonder Woman? And I was like, yeah, give me a costume and let's do this. But it wasn't like, I think it like started out as like playing around. Like we didn't have like this big crazy idea. It was just like, I want to paint you as Wonder Woman. I was like, yeah. And from there, once we actually sat down and started talking about the concept and the ideas and my experiences and, you know, how I feel being a Black woman, specifically a Black woman moving from the North to the South, and what my experiences were, that's when it went from let's just dress up as Wonder Woman to like, no, this is something else.
I would just, it had to be Wonder Woman. You know, I mean, when I realized that I wanted to do this painting, the idea for it was there before I came up with any of the details. And I knew that I wanted Anisha to be in it. I remembered that she had, posed previously as Wonder Woman for like Comic Cons and things like that. So that idea was already in my head. The problem with that one was, first of all, for, a painting that's going to be like this, how does a white artist, take a Black woman, dress her up as Wonder Woman, and not do it to where it is, not suggestive and not some kind of appropriation, and how, what right do I even have to speak to her life even, that was, this would be normally, if it hadn't been Anisha, this is a painting that I wouldn't have done. And the reason that I was able to do it is because I felt like I was able to share her experience with her, and I wasn't making a statement about Black culture or the Black experience. I was trying to tell Anisha's story as she told it to me. And even the pose that I chose, what she said about having to put the armor on, the pose that I had decided on painting her in is what I feel like is a heroic pose, but I still wanted it to feel almost reluctant, or resigned a little bit, like I can't believe I have to do this again, and yeah, so for me, it was, no brainer to do Wonder Woman. If I wanted to paint, a Black woman as the American experience, that to me was the only way to do it.
Okay, thank you for that. Anisha, anything to add?
No, I like hearing his, because we have two different views about this piece of art, and it means two different things to both of us. So I liked hearing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been very excited to hear what you had to say about all this, because we haven't talked about everything.
So speaking of which, let's jump into looking at the art and we can talk about it further. So let me share the screen here and get this beautiful piece up. Oops, bear with me. There we go. Okay, so there is our beautiful Wonder Woman. So one of the things that you touched on, Matthew, is maybe a reluctant hero, or maybe somebody who's tired of fighting but has to keep doing it. Anisha, would you like to talk a little bit about that, or how, if you felt that way, or sort of your experience?
I definitely felt that way. Our original idea was to kind of capture me at the end of my day, at the end of the fight. And I don't know what it meant for Matt, but when I look at this picture, I think about how tired I was at the time. Just the change of environment in general, and I'm not bashing the South. I think regionally, every culture is different. You go to California and there's a big health vegan culture. You go to the North and there's a huge emphasis on academia. The South is very much so rooted in family and tradition. These are things that describe it. But some of those traditions are more exhausting for some than others. And when Matt painted this, like I said, it was post 2016 election.
Immediately.
It literally was. I was exhausted. I was tired. I was tired of my environment. I was tired of the political climate. I had just moved to a new state and I was alone. When I look at this picture, I think about how exhausted I was. And it's funny to look at it because everyone sees strength. And I was probably on the brink of a breakdown. But yeah.
Well,
that's what
I would go on to say that, my idea for this, what's going on here is that you're actually at the beginning of the fight. It's not the fight after the long day. It's the, having to put the armor on again and get ready for the fight. And, in your head, that you've had to do this before, you're going to have to do it again. And I never viewed it as you being tired. I don't know if I know the right word for it. Some form of mental exhaustion, probably, for sure, but mostly just a resignation that, this shouldn't have to happen anymore. This should take care of itself.
And it's funny, as a Black woman, although I know it shouldn't have to happen anymore, my reality is that for the rest of my life, it will happen. And so I don't even think about that. Right. That's not even a thought that crosses my mind. Well, I just love hearing our two different takes.
Yeah. So that was one of the realizations that I came to, during our conversation was, I always felt like, I mean, this might sound naive, but like, this is a struggle that we can fix, if we just do this, if we just do that. And Anisha's like, are you nuts?
Well, there's a lot of this and that needs to happen. So yeah, in my mind, I'm just like, all right, time to go home. This picture to me is time to go home, have a glass of wine so I can go do this again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And maybe do it better tomorrow. But the idea that it shouldn't have to happen, it's like something you know, but it's not a reality
Right.
that's ever going to happen. I don't think in my lifetime, at least.
Well, and it's interesting that both of your takes about the tiredness and the whether it's before or after the fight. You do see that, oops, excuse me, you do see that to some extent in your face. I do register that when I look at it. It's
That's where I tried to put it. So yeah.
yeah. And just honestly, the fact that you're kind of, I guess, I don't want to say braced, but you're touching this dumpster. It's a support, obviously. So that might mean that you're tired or need a little extra holding up too.
Yeah.
So let's,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Or
Go
just
ahead.
not push off of it and kick some ass, we'll see.
So let's look at some of the poses. You all worked together and took various photographs when you were deciding exactly which one was the winner here. So let's take a look at some, and I love these. That's why I wanted to include them.
What a fun time.
It was. We actually had to do this twice. Do you remember that?
I just remember the time we drank a lot of wine.
The second time. Yeah, so the first time we did the pictures and they just, I don't know, I was off my game and they just didn't turn out well. So I had to ask her back. So this picture you're looking at is on the roof of the alternative art gallery space that I used to run in downtown Jacksonville. And this was basically after we had pretty much finished up. I mean, after I took the photos of her that I ended up using, I pretty much knew those are probably going to be the ones. But so we were just kind of messing around and seeing what else we could come up with. And, this was just amazing. I think this was your idea to pose up here like this. You were like, let's go up to the roof.
Yeah. And I wanted to do more risky stuff. Matt was like, no, you can't stand on the ledge. Like, that's not a good idea. But yeah, I was like, let's go up to the roof because we can get the skyline. And yeah.
Well, and I want to mention, those are some heels. What are those, like 4-inch heels on those boots?
They can't be 4 because I have the flattest feet in the world. Like they're probably 3 tops.
Okay. But
I've got
nonetheless, heels. All right, so let's look at the next one. Any thoughts on this?
That's the ledge I wanted to stand on, but there's a gap in between the 2 buildings.
And if you go to the left a little bit, it's a sheer drop off 2 stories down.
But yeah.
Yeah, this is just us goofing around at this point. That was just a fun day.
It's cool framing though. Actually, this is really nice.
Thanks.
And then this one. So let's talk about this one.
Right. So this was going to be, this is basically the original idea for the painting. I come from a slightly more classical background. So my original idea was to do, I don't know, like a portrait a la John Singer Sargent of her, kind of the same way. And if I hadn't gotten lucky, with the photos out in the alley, this might have ended up being, the painting. I'm sitting here thinking of like, basically portrait artists. I wanted to do a portrait of Wonder Woman. And it wasn't until after I'd done this and I was like, well, those are okay. Why don't we go out in the alley and mess around? And that was where like the whole idea really came alive. There were so many different, poses out there and different backgrounds and things that I could have chosen from. I think, the one that I picked was the only choice, but it could have been other ones and they would have been nearly as successful.
Wasn't the alley designated for graffiti?
Yeah, it's the only designated graffiti zone in Jacksonville.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and so here we go. Sorry, I asked you right as you took a drink of water. So this is it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's pretty close to the one. Yeah, as soon as I saw that, it looked to me, like a work of art and like the cover of a comic book at the same time. you know, which it wasn't super important to me to like throw any nods to, you know, the DC universe or anything like that. I did a little bit by like coloring the sky yellow instead of blue, but you know, I just, yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw her standing there, I told her, don't move, you know, and, you know, just snapped away for 15 minutes and then said,
Yeah.
put your other leg forward and don't move. So
If I remember, that's where we took the majority, like, yeah, that's where we took the majority of the pictures.
yeah, yeah, and they were all almost in this pose. You know.
Cool. Okay. And so here we go. Now, the one on the left, this, if you can see my cursor, everyone, this is in Matt's studio. So it's not completely finished. And I put them together with the finished piece on the right because some of the wording that encircles her almost halo-like is not in this piece on the left. This image of the little skeleton kind of figure is not on there yet. Wording on the spray cans at her feet are also not on the one on the left. So I want to talk about some of the words, and that's going to segue into the poem, which we can talk about too. But I want to talk about the words you chose and the words you put on there, Matthew.
Yes. So it's equity, justice, and truth. You know, so I knew that I was going to put this in a show that was a social justice themed art show in Jacksonville. You know, along with like environmental concerns and that kind of stuff, but like, you know, basically, you know, any liberal talking point was represented at the show. And yeah, I mean, those were words that were important to me. Originally, I had just planned on having the spray cans there as kind of a nod to all the graffiti behind her. And then I realized it was going to be a wasted opportunity. I've had people come up to me afterwards and say, why was she spray painting the wall? She's Wonder Woman. And it didn't occur to me that people would think that it wasn't her. But it might've been. And, you know, so, I mean, those are things that, you know, like Anisha said, I was literally doing this painting during Donald Trump's inauguration. And, you know, I was having a moment. I think like a lot of people were. And, you know, these were things that I felt that were under attack and needed to be representative of the piece that I was putting forward here, and representative of her.
Anisha, anything to add to that?
To the spray cans specifically?
Any of the wording on the piece?
Oh, then let's talk about the words around the halo.
Okay.
So Matt didn't show me this as he was doing it. I think he gave me like a glimpse, like a week and a half. Like he showed me like maybe the middle of it. He did not show me until it was done. And so I didn't know that he had included the poem. I don't think I've ever read words that described me better. And I didn't know that these words existed together. But I am intimidating. I am hard to love for a lot of reasons. But I felt like it captured the hardness of me, the softness of me, and that it made it clear that no matter what, even if you don't know how to love me, I'm still deserving of it. And it's probably my favorite part of the painting. I actually wish it were bigger so that no one could miss it. But that
I can go back there and change it.
Huh?
So I can go back there and change it.
Pretty sure the Appleton don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
But,
so the poet is a poet named Warson Shire. She's British. She is an activist, feminist. I can't remember how many awards she's won for her work. The poem is called For Women That Are Difficult to Love. And as soon as I read that, and I think I was doing the painting right around the time that I found that poem. And I don't remember how I came across it. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that part of the painting, there's a lot of the painting that are about issues and about my feelings and about anger and about the things that Anisha and I talked about. But that's the part for me that is about Anisha as a human being. And not just because she's my friend. When I think about her, just as a person, she's a powerful human being, and she's challenging. There've been very few people in my life that have challenged me in the way that she has to expand my understanding of things. And there are not a whole lot of people that I respect more than her. I've actually said to somebody one time that, she's the kind of girl that you hope your daughters will grow up to be.
Thank you.
Ooh, now that we're all teary.
Yeah. My favorite word that Matt uses to describe me is uncompromising. And
that's one of the less nice things about you.
Huh?
That's one of the less nice things about you.
See, and I specifically as a woman, I see it as one of the most positive things about me. Women are so compromising, almost to a fault, almost to the point where we sacrifice ourselves. And the fact that I can be uncompromising is the reason that I am who I am.
I agree with that, but I've also seen you be exceedingly gracious.
Huh?
I said I can agree with that, but I've also seen you be exceedingly gracious.
You can be uncompromising and gracious. But it's always been important to me that I don't compromise myself.
Sure.
And so when you say uncompromising, like, to me, it was a compliment. Because I see specifically so many women compromise themselves, and you don't have to compromise yourself to be loved. You shouldn't have to.
No.
And so I see it as a good thing and a compliment.
And just to reiterate for those of you who are watching, we're referring to the words along this area. If you can see my cursor on the right-hand side of the screen, and it's the very end of the poem, and it says, "You are terrifying and strange and beautiful, not something everyone knows how to love."
When I know I didn't show you that ahead of time, Anisha, but I was afraid, actually. After I had done it, I thought it was perfect. And then, like, it wasn't quite buyer's remorse, but I was like, I just didn't know how you were going to take it. I thought for a fleeting moment, doing this painting was terrifying for me. I thought that you were going to be offended by that. I thought I wasn't going to be able to paint, a painting of a Black woman in a Wonder Woman costume without it coming across as,
sexual,
misogynistic or sexual. Yeah, there was, after I had told you what I wanted to do, and I think it was before we had taken the pictures, I was just like, oh, what did I do? Because it was a lot to live up to, and there were a lot of pitfalls. And that in the poem, in the end, I was a little bit frightened for a minute that you would take it the wrong way, but you didn't.
Look, I call a spade a spade. I am terrifying, strange, and beautiful.
I never meant it as an insult, even a little bit.
They're facts, Matt. They're facts.
I love it. So this painting has taken on a life of its own. We are very, very grateful for the David and Lisa Midget Foundation that allowed us to purchase this painting. And Anisha has very graciously, Matt has to come back to talk about the painting. Anisha helped us with a campaign, as you can see in these two slides. And we're very thankful for that. Anisha's also worked with the Pace Center for Girls, forgive me, on a vision board project. So it's really taken on a life of its own, in addition to something we're also very proud of. It is a teaching poster. So it has an image of the painting on the front and a curriculum that Hollis Much, our Director of Education, created on the back. And those have gone out to every school in Marion County for them to use and utilize and have this wonderful piece as a glowing example and a beautiful in their schoolrooms. So we're very excited about that. Anything to add to that, you two?
I love everything that you guys think up to do with this, because I don't think this painting will be irrelevant anytime soon. So anytime you guys think of a way to push the representation of art, the representation in art, I'm all about it and I love it. And thank you to the Appleton and Lisa for supporting those goals, because it's really important to me that this image is seen. And no matter how anyone interprets it, no matter how they feel about it, it's important for it to just be seen. So.
I don't want like, I don't even know what to say there, just because I don't want to sound like, oh yeah, it was great that you guys picked it. You know, I'm really happy that it found a home at the Appleton, and thank you, Patricia, and thank you, Lisa and David, for that. You know, I don't want to overstate, I guess, what I think the importance of this piece is, and you know, the fact that it's in a museum. But for me to have it be able to be seen by, you know, the public in such large numbers makes me very happy. You know, when I went to an event at the Appleton, I think you were there, Anisha, that time. I can't remember if that was the time that you were there.
Was it night at the museum?
Yeah, it might have been. But I sat down on one of the benches there and just watched, you know, people come up and look at it. And I think, you know, you were there because I'm pretty sure you saw some of the same things that I did. There were several Black families there with little girls that responded ecstatically to the painting in a way that I had hoped that they would. And, you know, it's not, I still struggle with the idea that it was my place to even do this painting in the first place, you know, or that, you know, anyone deserves credit for it. But to just see someone, you know, frankly, just to see a little Black girl say that can be me, you know, or at least, you know, that's someone that looks like me, you know, in all museums throughout the world, you know, minorities and African Americans in particular are really underrepresented. And it's super important for people to see people that look like them so that they can say, I can do that, or I can be that. You know, so anyway, I'm ecstatic that it's in the museum, and I'm grateful to you guys for putting it there.
And to piggyback what Matt just said, when I went on field trips to museums when I was little, what was portrayed as far as Black women, slaves, and civil rights art, there were no powerful images that weren't directly associated with violence. And I think that's my favorite part, and that's why I will show up and do whatever the Appleton wants me to do with this painting. because it's really important to me that Black women and Black girls see an image that makes them feel good, that makes them feel valued, that makes them feel powerful. Because I myself did not have that. And I know there are, even in 2021, there are still so many Black women and girls who, or even just minorities, who still don't have that. Primary color has not made its way to them or an image like it. So yeah, I think that's my favorite part, when I get a text message from Hollis and it's some little girl looking up like this at the painting and she's in awe. Those are some of my favorite things. You guys don't stop sending those text messages. I love them every time, but it's really important that we see ourselves in ways other than ways that are associated with violence in our history. Because our history does not necessarily dictate our future.
Or your history as told by white America. I mean, okay, now.
That part.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being candid and for sharing. I appreciate that very much. So coming back to the painting alone, one thing I haven't asked you yet, Matthew, is your influences and actually I'm just going to stop myself real quick. It sounds like some people may not be on mute. If everyone who is watching could please mute yourselves. We're getting some feedback and I think that might disrupt other viewers' pleasure in watching this. So if anyone does not have their phone or their computer muted, if you could please do so in the audience, we'd be very grateful for that. So Matthew, I wanted to talk about artistic influences on you, because we hadn't really touched on that. Do you have heroes?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I was 11 years old, I started drawing by copying comic book characters out of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the X-Men. I haven't really read comics in a long time, but it was still a major influence on me. And it was certainly the thing that opened the door, to me with art, and specifically figurative art too, because that's what I knew I ended up wanting to do. I was never going to be an abstract artist for a multitude of reasons. I just don't think that way. But yeah, I mean, as far as specific influences now, I would say Kent Williams is a figurative artist that started off as a comic book artist, always did what you might consider more serious work. And now he's world famous. He's won the Outland Bookkeeper Award, which is, a triennial art competition that's put on by the Smithsonian. It's probably the most, prestigious portrait competitions in the world. So yeah, Robert Rauschenberg. Now, do you guys have one of those? Do you have a print of Rauschenberg in the same room that's?
Well, we've moved this painting to a different. I did I'm currently, it's on view in a I just went blank on the word, portrait. I'm kind of reconsidering portraiture and using that term very liberally, and it's in that show. So that we do have a Rauschenberg, but that currently is not on view because partly it's a work on paper, and we needed to take it off view after 6 months.
So after you picked up the took the piece, the first time I got to see it in the museum, it was in the same room as a Rauschenberg, and I turned to my wife and I was like, same. So yeah, he's always been one of my influences just because of his use of color and from his just, it seems like he never uses the same materials twice. He'll have series of things that move on to something completely different. So, he's just somebody that I appreciate for just never being static or staying still. Giacometti, he's known as a sculptor, but if you haven't seen his drawings, you should check him out. Chuck Close. And yeah, I know it's cliche, but Andy Warhol and Basquiat, as far as I appreciate pop art. I had a little snobbery when I was young about, what I thought art should be, but, I've come around, and, I think that as far as American arts go, I mean, you can't beat those guys. So,
Well, and one of the things I said, I think when I very first met you, because my introduction to you was through this painting. I saw the painting before I ever met you. And one of the things that struck me, in addition to the importance of the female figure, is also I like the way you handle paint. I really do.
yeah, I mean, it's a combination, I would say, of kind of traditional techniques and more modern techniques. I start off with an underpainting. I used to do that in oils, but now I usually leave so little time for me before deadlines that I have to use acrylic for the underpaintings. And I do a lot of layering with skin tones and that kind of stuff, but a lot of it I just paint very, very fast, especially the background. And, so yeah, there's no real one way that I paint, except it's slow, fast, slow, fast. So yeah, when I have to do the fast parts, I put on some punk rock music and I go to work. And, the slow parts, I'll put a little jazz on and take it easy. But,
Nice.
but yeah, they're all oil paintings. I usually paint on wood now. I do wood panels. I got frustrated with the way that canvas bounces when I hit it, because I can be pretty hard on the canvas. So I switched to wood panels now.
Okay. So Anisha, I want to talk about you too. You're ever since this, you've started modeling more, I understand it, and this has really kind of turned into another blossoming. Is that correct? Oh, yep. Oh, you're muted.
There we go.
Or
I have done more modeling. I've done 2 other portraits for an artist, Christina Mastrolangelo. I think all of the art I've done after this is nude, and I don't think I have any interest in doing any other kind. To be honest, I think there is a beauty in nude modeling. One, the vulnerability to do it. Matt has, he's introduced me to, his name is Kevin
Arthur. Yeah.
Kevin Arthur. I've done his class twice. And there is a fun and excitement to sitting in front of a room of 10, 15 people. But there's something I find really interesting about seeing how all 10 or 15 see me. And there's no hiding when you do nude modeling. Like, there's those stretch marks are those stretch marks, the way your breasts hang or the way your breasts hang, it is what it is. But seeing how, I specifically like classes because I like to see how everyone sees me. And everyone has a different medium. So some people are digital artists. Some people are using paint. Some people are using pencil and a sketch pad. So I love doing that, and I want to do more. So if anyone's interested, but I honestly love modeling. I love seeing how other people see me, because we don't get to see ourselves head on. We get to see ourselves in a mirror, but we are never looking at ourselves the way other people are. So
I agree. Would you say that that's the same for you, Matthew? When you look at a model, do you, talk to me about what's in your head when you're looking at a model?
For a large painting like this, it's actually very complicated and probably pretty boring. You do a lot of sketches and a lot of research and a lot of thinking. But when you're just drawing somebody like Anisha described, I know it's different for everybody, but the only way that I can describe it is, in that kind of drawing, I generally, it's actually the exact opposite of this. I don't see frequently the person all the time. It's just, breaking down shapes into smaller shapes. If you just wanted to talk about like the artistic technique of it, that's all it is. I do on my best work, I guess, try to, say something about the person that I'm drawing, but it's usually not about them. It's usually about me. Because I don't know what they're thinking, and I frequently don't know much about them at all. So, a lot of what you'll see on the page from the work that I create really depends on, the mood that I'm in, and if I had a fight with my wife, or that kind of stuff. It's it's all like very personal, as opposed to like this work, which is, I've always said that with paintings like this, with portraits, it's almost a dual portrait. That you're painting the person, but you're also, as the artist, imbuing yourself into the piece. So, it's a portrait of the person that you're painting. This is probably the truest example of that I can think of. I mean, it was a real collaboration, in a way that I don't think I'll probably ever be able to repeat.
That's wonderful. So I'm going to go back to our regular screen. I have one more question for each of you, and then we'll start taking questions from people. I see quite a few in the chat, so we'll start doing that in a moment. Matthew, as you know, we are owned by the College of Central Florida. We're actually a campus of the college. And I was wondering if you had any advice for young people, emerging artists who might want to become artists. What advice would you give somebody in that situation?
Sure. I'm really bad at this. A friend of mine that's an elementary school art teacher, and she asked me to do this for her class, and I did it, and she said never again. But yeah, I mean, the only reason to do art and to make art, or to want to make it your career or your lifestyle, is it's because it's the thing that you have to do. If you're satisfied with the work that you're producing, then you're not getting better. If you expect other people to appreciate your work the way that you want it to be appreciated, you're bound for disappointment. There's no money in it, so you're probably going to have another job. So the only reason to do it is because it's who you are, and if it's who you are, then you will succeed. And the success is in making the art. It's the end product is, or even the process of it, is what you should be getting out of it. Other than that, don't go to art school. Move to New York or LA or Miami and live there for as long as you got the money for, and soak up the culture. I mean, experience is much more beneficial than, I think, a traditional education, at least for me. And yeah, that's what I would say. Take the money that your parents are going to give you for college and go to a city.
Okay. So Anisha, what if someone is considering modeling? What advice do you have to give for anybody that might want to be on the other side of this equation?
Say yes. That's literally how I got into modeling. I said yes. Someone saw me, wanted to portray me. Every painting of me, every drawing of me was because I just said yes. I didn't think about how I would look. I didn't think about what I wanted from it. Specifically with Matt, he was inspired by me, which is a little different than maybe the other situations where I've modeled. I was an actual muse to Matt. But the other situations, someone saw me, wanted to paint me or draw me, and I said yes. And I didn't become self-conscious. I didn't worry about how I haven't worked out in a month, or that I need to lose 5 pounds, or that I need to gain 5 pounds. just say yes. Take opportunity when it's in front of you. If I didn't say yes, then this wouldn't exist.
Marvelous. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let me get the chat up and look at any questions. Dave asks you, Matthew, when did you do the painting of Anisha and how long did it take to create it? You kind of went over when, but
yeah, it was January of 2017. I can't exactly remember how long it was. It was at least
We took the pictures New Year's Day.
right. Yes, because we had taken the first batch before Christmas, and then I wasn't happy with the way those turned out, so we did it again on New Year's Day. I forgot about that. And I started painting it, almost immediately after that. But yeah, so it was somewhere around a month and a half, I would guess. And that was
The
working.
exhibit was February 7th.
Okay, yeah, so it was a month. All right, thank you.
I only remember because I went on vacation.
Yeah, so I do know that the painting was still wet when I hung it up for the show that I was doing, which is pretty frequent for me, actually. I do that a lot. But it's yeah, so 30 days. What was the other part of the question?
that was it. How long did it take? So that was it. Okay, let's see here. Oops, my cursor's not working. There we go. Let's see. I'm not seeing too many. Am I missing anything, anybody? Oh, there's a new one that just popped up. Why is this not showing? Huh, hold on a second. Something's weird. Jonah, I'm not seeing these pop
Yeah,
up.
I don't think there's many questions tonight.
Huh?
There's not many questions. That was the
Oh,
only.
okay, okay. Well, apparently we gave everybody the information all that they needed.
Class is out early.
So, I mean, I wanted to also say, I want to give you both more opportunities to talk. If there's anything else you wanted to say, if you wanted to add to anything we touched on that you feel wasn't touched on enough.
I want to emphasize how important it is to, no matter how uncomfortable it is, engage one another. If Matt and I hadn't engaged each other, if we hadn't had difficult conversations about the reality that each of us live, because I've learned just as much about Matt's perspective and how he sees the world, and what his reality is and how he lives, just as much as he's learned about me. And this piece of art would not exist without engaging each other, without stepping out of our comfort zones, without crossing some boundaries. And I just want to encourage everyone to do so.
Marvelous. Thank you very much. Matt, anything else to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. We have one last question that just popped up very quickly. Dave also asks, is Matthew a full-time artist?
Yeah, so I work as a sign artist for Trader Joe's, and then do the fine art stuff in my spare time, which is pretty significant. I have a lot of time.
And then another one popped up very quickly. Do they, meaning the two of you, do you both think that you will ever create, another Wonder Woman painting?
If I did another painting, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I did another painting of Anisha, and I hope I will actually, it probably won't be Wonder Woman again. What's that?
Oh no, I was saying let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think this is the pinnacle. I don't even think we could do another comic book character justice.
Yeah.
I think as far as that lane goes,
Yeah.
it was done the best that it could be done.
No, I don't think I'll ever paint another comic book character again, actually. It's
Better not.
no problem.
We have an absolutely lovely comment. I'm going to read it because it's just very delightful. Thank you for your kind words, Richard. Richard says, thank you, Matthew and Anisha. It's been a wonderful, thought-provoking and inspirational talk, and he loves the painting. He is in the UK where it is 1 a.m. right now, and he is glad he stayed up for this. Thanks to all at the Appleton for arranging this.
Thanks, Richard.
Wow, thanks, Richard.
Yes, thank you, Richard. That's very kind. That's very kind of you.
And thanks for staying up.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up, but I did want to mention also that this is an ongoing series. We traditionally do it the third Thursday of every month, and the next one is coming up on Thursday, June 17th. And the person that I will be interviewing is Maggie Taylor. Maggie is based in Gainesville now, and she does these really, it's art that's challenging to describe because it's mixed media, but it also has a sort of a nouveau fantasy element to it too. It's beautiful and intriguing and kind of hard to describe, to be honest. So we welcome your joining us again at 7 p.m. on June the 17th. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Anisha. You two are awesome as always. Appreciate you both.
Thanks, Patricia. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take good care, and thank you so much, and we will see you again soon. Good night.
Good night.